Because we could, or the player rather, might not have the axe ability, or the player rather, might not have and so we can't just blindly select the axe upgrades for the player. Right? So we're going to handle all of that in this lesson. And let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is go to our resources and then upgrades. And we're going to just duplicate one of these. So let's say duplicate the sword rate, and let's call it sword underscore damage. We'll duplicate that. Go ahead and double click the sword damage. Change the ID. It's very important that you change the ID to sword damage. And then the max quantity, let's just set that to 0, which means that we can have an unlimited. Number of these upgrades, and then we'll change this name to sword damage, and then let's say increases sword damage by, let's do 15%. That sounds good to me. All right, and then let's create one for the axe as well. So I'm just going to duplicate this sword damage by right-click duplicate. You can also press Control D to duplicate. So Control D, and then and I'm going to call this axe underscore damage and duplicate that. Double click into your axe damage and replace all of the references to sword, axe, damage, axe damage. And again, we'll keep the max quantity at 0. And let's change this one to slightly lower, because the axe can damage multiple enemies at a time. So we're going to turn this down to 10%. Okay, let's open up. The script for our upgrade manager by clicking into it. And we have our upgrade pool up here, which is going to be a little bit problematic. And why is it going to be problematic? Because again, if we randomly choose the axe damage upgrade, then we may not have the axe yet, and that doesn't actually make sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to opt to actually use that weighted table that we created a couple lessons ago, and we're going to use that for our upgrade pool instead. So let's get rid of this upgrade pool, and then let's create, under our current upgrades, let's create a upgrade pool variable, a new one, and this is going to be of type weighted table, and then we'll set it to weighted table dot new, like so. Okay, so now we've got a table instead of our array that we were exporting, and we need to preload all of our upgrades. So I'm going to go and create a new line, and I'm just going to say, okay, let's call it var axe upgrade is equal to preload, and I'm just going to preload basically all of the upgrades that we have. So var axe upgrade is equal to that, axe damage is equal to preload, and then you can just start writing axe damage and that will be preloaded. Again, make sure you're loading it from the upgrades directory. You don't want to accidentally load something that's not an upgrade resource. And then we're going to say var sword rate is equal to preload, and then you can just type sword underscore rate and select the one that is in the resources path, and then var sword damage is equal to preload res, or we can just type sword damage to get the autocomplete suggestions. Okay, so what items do we want to add first? So in the ready method, I'm gonna, above this connect line here, I'm going to say upgrade pool dot add item, and we're going to put in the axe. And I'm going to, before I go any further, I'm going to change the naming of this a little bit. So instead of axe upgrade, which I wrote up here, and axe damage and sword rate and sword damage, I'm going to change all of these to have a prefix of upgrade underscore. So I'm going to get rid of this underscore upgrade in the axe on line 9 here. Then I'm going to select at the beginning of the axe with my cursor, then I'm going to hold Alt. So hold the Alt key down, and then click at the beginning of each variable, and that will create a multi-line cursor. And with that, everything that we type is going to be duplicated across all those lines. And so I'm just going to write upgrade underscore and prefix all of those like that, just for consistency's sake. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's add an item. We'll say say upgrade axe, and then we'll say 10. So we'll just use a weight of 10 for everything. And then let's do upgrade pool dot add item. Now, if you wanted to be sophisticated, you could add another method in our weighted table that allows you to add a whole array of items with the same weight, but we're not going to go that far. So I'm going to do upgrade sword rate 10, and then upgrade pool dot add item upgrade sword damage 10. So we're adding all of the upgrades to our upgrade pool except for the axe damage, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so in our apply upgrade method, what needs to happen? Well, here, let's think about this. So when do we want the player to be...
W-E-I-G-H-T
And then you can just start writing axe damage, and that create one for the axe as well. So I'm just going to axe damage. We have our upgrade pool variable, a new one. And this is going to be of type weighted table, and then we'll set it to weighted table dot new, like so. Okay, so now we've got a table instead of our array that we were exporting, And we need to preload all of our upgrades. So I'm gonna go and create a new line. we've got quite a chunk of Now that we have another enemy going to return true and return that item, if we choose 11, now that we have another enemy, we need to make this enemy able to spawn as the game progresses. Now, this is going to be a little bit advanced. We're going to create a loot table, which is not going to be used for loot. Essentially, what we're going to create is a weighted random table. And what we're going to be able to do is control how likely it is that something will be picked randomly from a list. And the reason we're going to do that is because let's say that we go to our enemy manager script, and let's say that we simply exported an array of packed scenes and said, just pick a random scene from this array and use that as the enemy. The problem is that if we get to adding 3 or 4 or 5 enemies into the game, they're all going to have an equal chance of being picked. And that may not be in the best interests of the balance of the game. You may want to spawn less of the weakest enemy as the game goes on and more of the stronger one, right? So we can control that by creating a weighted table or a loot table, and again, not necessarily used for loot, just used to pick values and have more control over the randomness. So we're going to create a script that is going to represent our weighted table, and then we're going to use that for our enemy manager. So let's go ahead and create a new folder under the res root here in the file system. I'm going to create a new folder. Let's call it scripts. And under scripts, let's create a new script. And let's call this script weighted underscore table.gd. Create. And let's go ahead and double click that weighted table.gd to open it. We don't need it to extend anything, so let's get rid of this line and replace it with class underscore name weighted table in Pascal case, just like that. Okay, we're going to need a variable which is going to represent our internal array. And so we're going to say var items, and this is going to be array of type dictionary. So we're going to have an array of objects. And here's what we're going to do. Let's create a function called add_item. Okay. Then we're going to take the first argument is our item, and the second argument is going to be our weight, which is an integer. And how this is going to work is we're going to take that items array, we're going to append a new dictionary item, and we're going to call this item like so, and weight like so. And so we're adding an object, a dictionary, with the key item that represents our item, and this can be any type that we want. So in our case, we're going to use it for packed scenes, but this is just going to be, it can accept anything. We're not typing it. And then weight is going to be an integer always. Now, before I go any further, this items could potentially be null, so I'm just going to initialize items up here to be an empty array. All right, so now let's create a function called pick_item. And this is where the bulk of our logic about picking items is going to go. The way that it works is you iterate over every element in the array, you keep track of the sum of the weights as you iterate, and then you see if a random integer that you picked is less than or equal to the sum, and that means that you should pick that item. So I'm going to go over that again as we write this, but that's the basic idea. So you essentially keep a running total of all the weights you've calculated until you meet or exceed the weight that is randomly chosen at the beginning. So let's do that. Var chosen_weight is equal to, we want to do rand I range, which generates a random integer between the given range, and this is inclusive. So what that means is that we're going to supply 1 as the first weight, and then the last weight is going to be our weight sum. So weight_sum. And this is inclusive. So if this is 100, then it will pick anywhere between 1 and 100, which includes 100. Now, we don't have this weight sum yet. Why? Because we need to keep track of that. So at the top, underneath our items array, let's create a weight sum and initialize that to 0. And then whenever we call add item, let's increment that weight sum. So weight sum plus equals the weight that we're passing in. So now that we're calculating our weight sum, this will stay in sync with all of the weights that we've added for each item. So again, each item has an individual weight, but we're keeping track of the total weight because that's what we're going to use to pick the random range. So we're picking between 1 and weight sum. Okay, now we need to keep track of an iteration sum.
Yo, what's up, Code Rad Games? I'm doing good. I got my last stream for a while. I'm just trying to learn Godot, man, and build a game at the same time. Doing both those things. It's a lot. I feel like my brain is gonna break. And eventually I have to get better at C++ too if you're gonna keep going with Godot, because that's kind of how it works. You do the GD script for most of the stuff, and then when you have to optimize, you'll take certain components of your project and convert them to C++ because it, I don't know, the pre-compiled code like processes faster or something.
So let's create a variable iteration sum and initialize that to 0. And then we're going to do a for loop. For item in items. So this is going to iterate over this array, pulling out each one of these dictionary objects individually. And what we're going to do is we're going to increment our iteration sum by item.weight, okay, just like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to check if our chosen weight is less than or equal to that iteration sum, then that means that we've landed on the item that we should return. So in this case, I'm going to return item.item. I know that's a little bit confusing. This item right here represents this dictionary object, and then this item represents that key. Now, I believe this is actually incorrect. So this is the way that you would reference properties within an object, but this is not the same type of object. It's a dictionary, so we actually need to use to reference the keys with brackets like so, and then
idiot, it's not an array.
So this
idiot
is how
teacher.
We should reference that dictionary. All right, so now we've got our pick item. So again,
idiot teacher.
We're basically just choosing a weight that is between 1 and weight sum.
And it's not Sue, even though that's what he wrote.
Inclusive. We're keeping track of the current iteration sum by adding each individual weight as we iterate over each item. But if our chosen weight that we chose up here is less than or equal to our iteration sum, then we're just going to stop and return that item. So you can imagine, let's say that we have one item which has a weight of 10. If we choose, let's say 5 as our chosen weight, then this is going to return true and return that item. If we choose 11, then this item's not going to be returned, right? And let's say we had a second item in addition to that.
Yeah, so this is for choosing upgrades, right? The idea is if you put a certain tier like 10, then that one will always be selected first. So all of the 10s will be selected first. And then until you get all of the 10s, then you can do all the 9s, and then you can do all the 8s. The idea with that is like you have to unlock all the abilities before you can upgrade them. Although it's a little bit more flexible than that. But it's...
weight of 10 that had a weight of 100. So our total weight is 110, and if we chose 11 in that scenario, then we would choose the item that has the weight of 100. I hope that makes sense. It should make more sense.
This is actually a chapter in this tutorial that I straight up just accidentally skipped. And it's interesting that I was able to skip it because there are some bugs I came across that I like fixed as I went, and I was wondering why they were there. But now I know why they were there because I skipped the chapter.
As we continue to use this. So that's our weighted table. Now, how do we use this? Let's open up our enemy manager script from the main here. And we have our basic enemy scene here. What I'm going to do is I am going to create another export variable called wizard enemy scene. And that's going to be of type packed scene. Now I'm going to click into the enemy manager scene with this button here. To go to the scene where I can drag over the wizard enemy scene here. So I'm going to search my file system for...
What the... Here's all our enemies. Oh, I didn't have my... Oh, I used the enemy. Okay, so that's the way it works. So the enemy manager is got me here. Here we go.
Wizard enemy scene, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag that in there. Okay, so going back to the enemy manager script, so we have these two scenes. Now, what do we want to accomplish? We want the wizard to start spawning after some amount of time. So using our loot table, how can we do that? Or our weighted table, let's say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new weighted table by creating a new variable. I'm going to say var weighted table. Actually, let's call it enemy table is equal to weighted table dot new. So this is how you create a new instance of that class that we defined in our weighted table here. And in the ready method, what we're going to do is we are going to say enemy table dot add item, and we are going to pass in our basic enemy scene as the item with a weight of 10. Okay, perfect. So let's scroll down to on timer timeout. And in here, instead of referencing the basic enemy scene directly, let's do another variable above the enemy. We're going to say enemy underscore scene. Is equal to weighted table, or sorry, enemy table dot pick item. And this is going to return one of the packed scenes that we've configured in our table here, right? And in this case, it's just going to be the rat enemy. So here, make sure to replace this basic enemy scene in the on timer timeout to enemy scene instead. Or sorry, enemy table dot pick item. And this is going to return one of the packed scenes that we've configured in our table here, right? Weighted table. Actually, let's call it enemy table is equal to weighted table dot new. So this is how you create a new instance of that class that we defined in our weighted table here. And in the ready method, what we're going to do is we are going to say enemy table dot add item, and we are going to pass in our basic enemy scene as the item with a weight of 10. Okay, perfect. So let's scroll down to on timer timeout. And in here, instead of referencing the basic enemy,
that makes sense why there were some stuff not working from the tutorial. That no one complained in the comments or something that it's broken. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I did look through the comments, and actually that's how I figured out that I missed something. But it wasn't because of that particular thing. He created this class called weighted table for this particular instance. And I'm like, we never made that class, you know? So I'm looking for like weighted table in like the course help. And it was like way back in chapter 40, and I'm on like chapter 50 something. And I was just like, let me check that course that he's asking about where there's a weighted table, which is the thing that I'm missing. And his question was totally unrelated. Despite being, it was unrelated beyond the extent of just using the same class name. But I went and I looked at that chapter of the course, and I realized I've never seen this. Like, I somehow managed to skip it. I mean, it's just a click, right? Like, it's something you could do. And I've literally done like 50 something courses in the course of like 2.5 weeks, and it's understandable. This is like just the actual video instruction time is over 60 hours, you know. And I mean, yeah, I wasn't under time pressure when I skipped that, but I am under my own time pressure. And I've been flying through this course like super fast. It's almost kind of bad because I feel like I'm missing some things and I'm like forgetting stuff, but it's okay. I'll just figure it out. I'll take another course or something. I think the next game jam, I'll probably do like another of this guy's courses. He has like a side scroller one, and I'll do like a game jam. Next time I can do a game jam, I'll do a side scroller tutorial of his. This guy's really good. Like, his tutorial is, honestly, it's the best I've seen. Like, it's legitimately like the best online course I've done for anything game dev related. Very inspiring. I'm actually pretty sure this summer I'm pretty committed to making an RPG Maker MZ tutorial, just to kind of start making paid tutorials. And that sounds really exciting to me, because in my YouTube channel, I don't like doing like simple stuff. It's kind of boring to me. So it's very useful if I could like do the fundamentals on Udemy, right? And do like a 40-hour course or a 30-hour course. And then, which would be easy to make, right? It would be easy for me to do like an RPG Maker MZ fundamentals course. I could do it almost just prepare basically like an outline and then do it basically extemporaneously from there. I could probably do it in like a month. And then, you know, you get a couple hundred sales, you already got a month's of income. And even if I don't, I want to try and just do it just to get good at doing that. I mean, that seems like a fun kind of entrepreneurial income generator. But that being said, I could do I want to do an MZ course. I think probably this summer I'll probably do it, and then I might, who knows, I might go from there into doing the RPG Maker Unite course, right? See if I can pick up on that engine fast enough. And that allows me to kind of stay away from like the fundamental beginner stuff in my YouTube channel, because I want my YouTube channel to be more advanced content. I don't really want it to be a bunch of like really simple beginner videos, you know? I just think that's boring for YouTube. I'd rather answer hard questions, and that's more exciting to me. So it's like I can, you know, and then it'll give me more motivation to do content on YouTube, because I'll be like, yeah, if you need some more of the fundamentals of RPG Maker, you know, go ahead and hit up my course, and if you start from there, you'll be able to, and that's actually much the way I found this course. Firebelly Games is a YouTube content creator, and he makes, what I liked about his videos is that they're really like to the point. Like, they all answer a very specific question, and they're not like so much friendly to the YouTube algorithm, just more very useful. And it's almost like he's overpowered the algorithm by being useful, versus having like the 10-minute video and, you know, the high rate of watch time and all that stuff. He's like gone against all of those metrics and kind of just done it his own way and came out on top, you know. So that's what I would kind of like to do, something like what he's doing. And then if you look at on his YouTube channel, like all of his videos are relatively advanced, which is cool, you know. And his video has super good reviews. It's like 5-star across the board.
Be seen directly. Let's do another variable above the enemy. We're going to say enemy underscore scene is equal to weighted table, or sorry, enemy table dot pick item. And this is going to return one of the packed scenes that we've configured in our table here, right?
Code Red, have you seen my game? It's actually looking pretty cool. I don't even know if it'll run right now with this code half done it. It probably won't. Yeah, it won't. Never mind. I don't have the...
And in this case, it's just going to be the rat enemy. So here, make sure to replace this basic enemy scene in the on timer timeout to enemy scene instead.
I would reverse it, but it'll take too long. But if you're around in like maybe a half hour, it'll probably be good again. Because in the middle of what we're doing, you can't... I'm like in the middle of changing the weighted like upgrades priority. So it's going to be broken.
And that should be good. So if we did everything correctly, the rats should still be spawning.
Yeah, let me know if you're
and
back.
Actually, this basic enemy scene here in the enemy manager is still...
It's pretty good. I wanted to make the game for HTML so that you could play, but I'm realizing like there's a lot of like limitations with shaders and stuff. So I'm gonna just go through the tutorial as he says to do it with a lot of stuff that isn't HTML5 compatible. And then I'll probably try to re-engineer some of the animations in a way that they'll work on mobile and HTML5. So he does like the particle system doesn't really work on web. So you would have to do, I don't know, you just have to do animations in a way that work with HTML5, and you know, it's similar to how it was with RPG Maker. Like there are certain rendering capabilities that I wasn't able to use in RPG Maker. And I really want this game to be, I want there to be an option for desktop, Mac, and Windows, but I more want it to be an HTML5 game that you can like log into your account from your HTML5 window. Like that's what I want. So I want it to be web and Android and iOS. Like everything is designed around that, and it's free to play. And then I'll give you like bonus content if you pay, you know? I've also, by doing this, I've learned a couple like multiplayer tricks that I will be able to apply to Familia. Like how to do HTTP calls and stuff and log in. So it will be like, I'm gonna have it so there's like a Maui game login, and you can like log into either Familia, and I'm gonna do seasonal content for Familia. I'm gonna make it like a randomized mode and a story mode, and you can play, it'll be like you can play randomized mode right off the bat. You don't even have to play the story mode if you don't want to, and you can play the story mode if you want. And you can use the characters interchangeably between the two modes. Well, you'll be able to use them, the rando characters, in the story mode, and then after you finish the story mode, you'll be able to convert them back to rando characters. So, but yeah, I want to make seasonal content for both games, much like Diablo 3's model, but the different monetization model. I may include both of them like in a package, like $5 a month, and you can get 2 for $8 or something. Maybe, probably not that much though. Probably more like $3, like $2 a month and 2 for $3 or something. 2 for $150.
We'll set to wizard. So let's go ahead and search for the basic enemy here and drag that over into the first slot here. So now we've got basic enemy and the wizard enemy. Item. And this ready method, what we're going to do is we are going to say enemy table dot add item, and we are going to pass in our basic enemy scene as the item with a weight of 10. Okay, perfect. So let's scroll down to on timer timeout, and in here, instead of referencing the basic enemy scene directly, let's do another variable above the enemy. We're going to say enemy underscore scene is equal to weighted table, or sorry, enemy table dot pick item. And this is going to return one of the packed scenes that we've configured in our table here, right? And in this case, it's just going to be the rat enemy. So here, make sure to replace this basic enemy scene in the on timer timeout to enemy scene instead, and that should be good. So if we did everything correctly, the rats should
Dude, there's something else here I didn't do. This enemy manager script is just a mess. Like, didn't do any of this stuff. I must have missed another one too in addition to this one. Jesus, what could I have?
So let's scroll down.
Missed? So this one has to do with spawning the enemy. Oh, it's probably in that invalid spawning one. I skipped that one. That's what I get for skipping that one.
So we're going to go ahead and fix that. And luckily, I think the fix is going to be pretty simple. So let's go to our enemy manager and open up that script. And our enemy manager is responsible for spawning enemies. Now what we're doing to determine the spawn position of the enemy is we're essentially just getting a randomly...
Yeah, I skipped this one too. Shit. The game is a mess, dude.
Rotated unit vector. Then we are multiplying that by the spawn radius and adding that to the player position. And of course the problem being that if we are pointing in a direction that goes past a wall, then the enemy will spawn outside the wall. And so there is a fix that I think is going to work really well.
I saw this. I remember I intentionally didn't want to use this. But now the spawning system he's setting up with the weighted spawning is incompatible with this previous version. So I'm gonna have to implement this, which is fine, I guess. This makes it so stuff doesn't spawn outside of the boundaries, which I kind of didn't like, but at the same time, later on I figured out that that creates a situation where you can't loot all of your drops because you'll get drops that spawn outside of the area. So I just don't have enough time to do all these three. Well, I'm almost done with the weighted table stuff. Yeah, I'm just gonna do it.
Well in this situation, and that is essentially that we're going to do a ray cast to determine if the spawn position is valid. Now it's going to be a little bit tricky because we still want the enemies to spawn off screen, so we need to figure out what we're going to do when we encounter a ray cast collision.
This will actually change the mechanics of the game pretty heavily, because what it'll do is it'll make it much more favorable to stay next to walls, because before they can come at you from outside the walls, and now they can't. So I kind of like that they could come from outside the walls. I thought that was cool, but I guess I can re-implement that as a mechanic later by just disabling this. It's literally like a comment out type of thing.
And a ray cast is essentially a line along which you check for collisions. So we can pick a start position and an end position. And
gosh, it's getting late already though. I'm a little freaked out about this.
We can ask Godot, is there any terrain collision?
Oh, I don't know if I should start this right now. Maybe I'll finish this weighted table one and then come back to this.
Down to on timer timeout, and in here, instead of referencing the basic enemy scene directly, let's do another variable above the enemy. We're going to say enemy underscore scene is equal to weighted table, or sorry, enemy table dot pick item, and this is going to return one of the packed scenes that we've configured in our table here, right? And in this case, it's just going to be the rat enemy. So here, make sure to replace this basic enemy scene in the on timer timeout to enemy scene instead. And that should be good. So if we did everything correctly, the rats should still be spawning. And actually, this basic enemy
should label this. This will help me remember. I just write less than 40 on it. To do. Toto.
scene here in the enemy manager is still set to wizard. So let's go ahead and search for the basic enemy here and drag that over into the first slot here. So now we've got basic enemy and the wizard enemy. So let's run the game and make sure that that's working. Okay, so everything's still working, which means that our weighted table is working. Now, how do we make the wizard start spawning later in the game? So we've got this on arena difficulty increase.
Wait, I don't have that? Enemy manager? Oh, I do.
Increased, right? So very simply, what we can do in this signal handler is we can say something like if arena underscore difficulty is equal to 6. So that's 30 seconds into the game. What we're going to do is we are going to say enemy table dot add item, and we are going to say the item is our wizard enemy scene, and we're going to give it a weight of 20. So do you see how this is working? We're giving this wizard enemy scene a weight that's greater than the rat to make it appear more commonly. And so since the total weight by the time we add the wizard is going to be 30, there's actually going to be a 33.3% chance of the rat spawning and a 66.6% chance of the wizard spawning. And then we can extend this further with other enemy types. So we could say if arena difficulty is equal to 12, which would be 1 minute, then we could add another enemy here, right? But we're not going to do that just yet. And we can change this number later, but basically what I should see is by the time 30 seconds rolls around, wizards should start spawning in addition to the rats. And here come some wizards. So now I've got wizards coming at me. That should be the majority of the things that are picked now, the majority of the enemies. Yeah, so look at all of work done on the visual presentation of our game. Rate is equal to preload, and then you can just type sword underscore rate and select the one that is in the resources path, and then var sword damage is equal to preload res, or we can just type sword damage to get the autocomplete suggestions. Okay, so what items do we want to add with new item? Ability upgrade, but I'm actually going to create a new function. I'm going to say func update upgrade pool, and then we're going to say let's create another argument or a parameter here called chosen damage 10. So we're adding all of the upgrades to our upgrade pool except for the axe damage, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so in our apply upgrade method, what needs to happen? Well, here, let's think about this. So when do we want the player to be able to choose the axe damage as an upgrade? Well, only after we've actually received the axe ability. And so in our apply upgrade, we can actually modify our upgrade pool at runtime while the game is running to update it with new items. And so we can write that code in the apply upgrade, but I'm actually going to create a new function. I'm going to say func update upgrade pool, and then we're going to say let's create another argument or a parameter here called chosen upgrade, and we'll call it ability upgrade as a type there, and then we'll start writing out this method. So what do we want to do? We want to say if chosen upgrade dot id is equal to, and what is our axe id? Our axe ID is simply just axe, so I can do axe, and even better, instead of writing a string in here, I already have a reference to my upgrade axe here, right? So I could say if chosen upgrade.id is equal to upgrade axe.id, then that means that the axe has been chosen, right? And technically what I can do is I can even just do this and see if these resources are equal to each other. So you can use any form that you want. I like to use ID because there could be situations where you may be duplicating a resource which breaks the reference, right? So if I did this, if my chosen upgrade ability upgrade is equal to upgrade axe.duplicate, this will always return false. Why? Because duplicate creates a new reference, and when you compare two resources together by equality, you are checking if the references are equal. So I don't like to do this because there is a risk that somewhere in your code you might duplicate a resource for some purpose, and then when you try to do this equality, it will break because it's not technically the same reference. And so that's why I like to have a secondary sort of ID, because I want to be sure that these are the same type of resource, right? So that's just my personal preference. You can also, if you wanted to, use this property resource path, and resource path is, if we click into it, is the path to the resource on the disk. And so you could actually just compare the path of the file to see if it's the same file. Anyway, that's enough on all those equalities. We're just going to use the ID because we're already using an ID elsewhere. So if our chosen upgrade is equal to the upgrade axe, then what we can do is we could say upgrade pool dot add item, and we're going to add the item, which is upgrade axe damage, and we're going to add 10. Now I'm just going to make all of these weights equal, but feel free to change these weights according to how you want to balance the game. Remember, a greater weight means that it will be more likely to be chosen. Okay, and then we have this function now, which we can extend when we have other upgrades that are being chosen. Okay, so we still need to call this though. So before we call the emit in our apply upgrade, let's do update upgrade pool, and then we'll pass in our upgrade here. There's still a bunch wrong with this code because we went from a standard array with our upgrade pool to a weighted table. So you recall a couple lessons ago, we were doing some things with the upgrade pool, we were filtering it and all of that good stuff. So that we didn't choose the same date upgrade pool, and then we'll pass in our upgrade here. There's still a bunch wrong with this code because we went from a standard array with our upgrade pool to a weighted table.
Code, are you there? Code Rad? This is basically what it looks like. I haven't added any sound effects, but there's two types of missiles now. I added a little bit of gravity, so you see they have to chase me a bit. Like they have a little bit of drift. So you see that little spinny animation that kind of happens when they're dying? That actually doesn't work on HTML5. So I can actually recreate that pretty easily, being the nature of the way it looks. I just don't want to do it until I'm finished with the tutorial. So if you're noticing now too, there's a bug. Non-existent function duplicate in base. This shouldn't be broken. This is an upgrade manager. Upgrade filtered. This is right. That's strange. Weighted table. Oh, tons of errors. Oh, this is what's breaking it. I see now. It's my new ability. It's my shooting ability. I didn't add it to the... It's not like part of the system. Okay, that's... I don't need that. What errors am I getting? I think it's just that, dude. Love the damage numbers. Oh yeah. Turning it into more of like a Vampire Survivors game. There'll be more enemies eventually, but I want to release it just with missiles. So I'm just gonna have 2 kinds of missiles at first. And you actually get upgrades, right? The upgrade screen is pretty ghetto now. Look. Actually, it's broken now. Okay, well I got a lot less errors that time. Yeah, there's an upgrade screen that I just kind of broke.
Mit in our apply upgrade. Let's do update upgrade pool, and then we'll pass in our upgrade here. There's still a bunch wrong with this code because we went from a standard array with our upgrade pool to a
I'm going to see if he
weighted
addresses
table.
it in the
So
tutorial.
you recall a couple lessons ago, we were doing some things with the upgrade pool. We were filtering it and all of that good stuff so that we didn't choose the same upgrade twice. And we're going to have to do the same with our weighted table. And this actually shouldn't be too difficult.
Okay, so he is addressing directly the issue.
So instead of this filtered upgrades, we're not going to do any of that. So let's get rid of this filtered upgrades line.
Okay.
Now we're going to get a bunch of errors from removing that line, but that's fine for now. So chosen upgrade, we're going to, instead of doing filtered upgrades here, so let's comment out this line because it's being a little bit annoying. So we're going to hit Control K on these 2 lines to comment those out. And then our chosen upgrade, we're going to say upgrade pool dot pick item. Okay. And then we're going to append. So we actually don't need this filter down here anymore because we're going to do something similar in our upgrade table, or our weighted table rather. So let's control click on this pick item right here to go into the weighted table, and let's allow ourselves to pass in an array of items to exclude. And then we're going to append. So we actually don't need this filter down here anymore because we're going to do something similar in
Well, he changed a lot. I didn't even see all that.
difficult. So instead of this filtered upgrades, we're not going to do any of that. So let's get rid of this filtered upgrades line. Now we're going to get a bunch of errors from removing that line, but that's fine for now. So chosen upgrade, we're going to, instead of doing filtered upgrades here, so let's comment out this line because it's being a little bit annoying. So we're going to hit Control K on these 2 lines to comment those out. And then our chosen upgrade, we're going to say upgrade pool dot pick item. Okay. And then we're going to append. So we actually don't need this filter down here anymore because we're going to do something similar in our upgrade table, or our weighted table rather. So let's control click on this pick item right here to go into the weighted table, and let's allow ourselves to pass in an array of items to exclude. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say exclude. This is going to be of type array, and we can't type this because we don't have types in this class here. And we're going to set this by default equal to empty array. So you can actually assign default values for parameters by putting equals and whatever value you want as part of the parameter. So this means that if we don't pass in an exclude array, it's by default going to be empty. All right, and so we're going to have to do a little bit of manipulation here in order for this exclude array to work. So we want to do this. If exclude.size is greater than 0, let's write a pass right here for now. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to recalculate the weight sum, and we're going to reassign the items array. So let's create a new variable up here called adjusted items is equal to an empty array, and we can also type this the same as the items up here. So let's type it as an array dictionary. Okay. And we can just assign this to start to items, just like so. Okay, and then we're going to say var adjusted weight is equal to weight sum. And let's be consistent, we'll call it adjusted weight sum. All right, so now that we've grabbed a separate reference to those, if our exclude size is greater than 0, then what we're going to do is we're going to say adjusted items is equal to empty array. So we're going to reassign it, and then we're going to say for item in items. Then we're going to say if item.
Hey, Sekraz. What's up, guys? I am just working on a tutorial. I was watching your stream for a little bit, but I came and started streaming. It's going okay. I'm still pretty new to Unity, so I'm using a tutorial to make this game. I'm probably going to publish the game and have people play it and stuff on itch and maybe mobile too, but Android for sure. Maybe not iOS, but it's like a Vampire Survivors game. Mine's like a spaceship one. And I wonder if I can actually play it right now. It'll probably break. I'm in the middle of setting up the arrays. Yeah, it won't work. It's fine. Is that Unity with the Godot skin? No. No, it's just Godot. I just moved I prefer the UI to have all of the inspector and the scene on the left. I just feel like it's it's just easier to understand. Also too, this space, it tends to, if you're streaming, I have my chat there, right? So it tends to be better to show this if I'm showing the chat on the right of it, because that tends to be empty space. I mean, if I want to zoom, I can, right? But, and even still, this is fine for streaming. He made Unity in Godot. I rebuilt the Unity engine in Godot, yeah. Also, hi, Practical. I always forget to zoom. Yeah, I used to use a different, well, depending on what I'm doing, I still use it, but I have like a further back view, right? And you can notice too, the chat's bigger. This is like if I'm playing a game, usually like a retro game or something. And I got the close-up one so that if people want to read the code, it's a little bit easier. They can't see your code. My code has been pretty good because I've just been copying code from this tutorial. So this guy's freaking... I've been very impressed with this tutorial. So my code has actually been pretty solid, as good as it's ever been. Well, except for the parts that I actually code myself. But you gotta learn somehow. I think actually, in my opinion, Godot is a better engine for streaming than Unity. The space RPG, I think this is a space game that I'm making now, but I wouldn't really call it an RPG, but this is a different project. I got a little bit stuck on that one. I got to like account creation. I got to where you could like see the other player and the chat was working. But I decided to just do something with some very low level network stuff first. And thus I started doing this project. And this just has leaderboards. Maybe I'll add chat in eventually. Probably not though. Yeah, so this one is just gonna have leaderboards. I think really I'd like to make a video talking about it, but it makes sense to start with like low level, what I would consider like the easy mode network stuff when you're trying to make like people who want to make an MMORPG. The first thing you should learn how to do is like HTTP calls and account verification, right? Like get those down. And a good way to get those down is to have a game that has a leaderboard system. I mean, most games have scores, so implementing a leaderboard system, you can make a relatively simple game with a leaderboard system to where you have to log in to save your score on the public leaderboard. I think that that's a good start. And then maybe next I would say make like a peer-to-peer game, because in an engine like Unity or Godot, making a peer-to-peer game is so easy because a lot of the well, it's not easy, but it's first thing you need to know is how to make a good game. I agree even more. So I'm more like talking about like if somebody's trying to make a multiplayer, like if somebody's trying to eventually make like a, say like an open world RPG, for example. The path to that would be, I would say, first make a fun game, right? Just try to make games that are fun, short games that are fun. Peer-to-peer, that's esoteric, fancy talk to me. No, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's the progression. Like you start with a single player game, and then maybe you can make a game with like a leaderboard system, right? With a public leaderboard system and maybe an account verification system. You probably have to have both those things in order for one to work. Well, you need the account verification for a leaderboard. So you start with just a single player game, then you go to a game with like HTTP calls, like a leaderboard system. Then the next stage would be to do like a peer-to-peer game, right? And then the next stage after that would be a dedicated server game, where it's like that would be like the equivalent of like an open world. It doesn't have to be like necessarily like an MMO, but it can be a small scale open world game where you have like maybe 10 or 12 players that can just randomly come in, walk around and talk to each other, do things independently of each other without having like a lobby and stuff. And that's like the logical progression into that multiplayer world, you know? And I think a lot of people try to go straight to the multiplayer, like the open multiplayer, and that's a mistake. So for me, I did try to do it, but in my defense, not for more than a few weeks. And I was learning a lot, and I got to a point where I wasn't really learning a lot because I just didn't know a lot about the engine. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back and do a single player game. And then while doing this game, I'm like, okay, well, I know enough about I'm a web developer by trade. So I know enough about HTTP calls and like account verification where I could pretty easily implement that. So I will probably put that into this game, but this game will be a functional single player game before I get that. That's so complicated. I can't handle anything more complex than pressing the make multiplayer button in the game engine. I don't really know much. Wanayo. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to my channel. The make multiplayer button. I don't think that's a real thing, bro. I don't know. Maybe in Roblox. Yeah, I don't know if. I mean, there is, but maybe I don't think it does what you think. Maybe in Roblox. I could see making a Roblox game. There's like a make multiplayer button. Okay, let me just. Plugin by Silent Wolf. Was that in Godot? Was that in Godot? Sekraz? I've heard about the Silent Wolf plugin. I might have to give it a shot before I do my own implementation.
It was a cold, cold day
Game data?
in the summer, but the sun was in the sky.
Do you know if you can only use it with Godot?
It was a sad, sad day, but I still remember.
It looks like it's made for Godot, but
You could hear a children cry. It was a cold, cold day. The sun was in the sky.
yeah, I might give it a shot. See, the thing is that I have another game that's pretty good that I want to implement a leaderboard system into as well. But that game was made with RPG Maker.
The way she always gave us what we needed. And way back in my mind, she'll always be alive.
Does it cost money?
I love her till the day I die.
It looks like you might. It's free, which is actually frustrating. Why is it frustrating?
Sun was in the sky. Sad, sad day. You could
I don't know. You can ask Sekraz. I've never used this service before. Morngard.
but it's the good old times that I still remember. The way she always
To
gave
pay
us
for
what we
QoS.
needed.
What is QoS?
And way back in my
Questions and support?
she'll always
Questions or support? Quality of service? Oh, so to get the so you wanted to pay to get like a better, more dependent like server response time and stuff? Do they have integrations for mobile? That would be the other thing that I would ask. Because I already know how to set up like account creation and stuff. Not necessarily with Godot, but I know how to do the HTTP calls, which basically means I know how to do it with Godot. And my game is going to be a mobile game. So it's going to be a mobile game with like HTML option. So it's not really going to be geared. So it might be the case where the thing about Firebase, the Google login creation system, is that you can really easily just pump it into like Apple and iPhone for automatic temporary, I don't know what the terminology is, but you know like on how mobile games you just start playing and then you can create your account later? You can do that. A Firebase plugin for Godot? What? Bro, you're talking crazy talk. Wouldn't be surprised. Firebase is very popular. Yeah, I didn't really mean I think you're talking crazy talk. Like I didn't mean it like. Isn't it funny? This guy's called Wolfgang, and then this is called Silent Wolf. What's with these wolves making authentication integrations for Godot, man? Howlers. Is there a Godot store? Godot Firebase 4.0. Godot and open the store there. I don't want to close my project. I guess I can open a new window. I don't even know how to use all this. The big button in the top middle. Oh, this one? I don't want to download it. Is this kind of what you're thinking? Very cool. I will check that out. I'm not quite at the point where I can implement the leaderboards yet, so I'm not too worried about it. But it's basically... I'm going to finish this tutorial, and then I will get into that, you know? That's my plan. Plugins in Godot are super simple. Yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna try and finish the rest of this tutorial and then go to sleep. I might not. I'm kind of falling asleep already. Gardening?
Item, and then a key of item in quotes. In exclude, then what we want to do is we want to continue. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to say adjusted items dot append item, and then adjusted weight sum plus equals item, and then in quotes, weight. Okay, and then we need to make sure that under this adjusted items line, we need to say adjusted weight sum is equal to 0. All right, so what is this doing? So we're iterating over each item in our internal items array, so this one up here that's stored. So we're iterating all over that. We're getting the object, Godot variant that's stored at the key item, and we're checking if that item is in the exclude array. And this is basically a shorthand way of saying iterate over the exclude array to check if this item is inside of that. And then if so, we are continuing. And now what continue is it's different than break. Break will stop the execution of the for loop overall. Continue will stop the execution of this specific item. So continue essentially means, okay, go to the next item in the loop. So if the item is not in our exclude array, then what we're doing is we're adding that to the adjusted items. So this is our new array, right? And then we are also adding the new weight sum to that adjusted weight sum. Okay, and so in our chosen weight now, and in this block down here, we need to change what numbers are being used. So this weight sum here needs to be adjusted weight sum. And then for item in, this has to be adjusted items. This is basically going to have, this is not going to change if our exclude array is empty, because we're assigning the adjusted items to the reference of this items array, and then we're also assigning the adjusted weight sum to the total weight sum, right? So, and then we're just essentially recalculating it if the exclude array is present. Okay, and a word about this is that this is not the most performant code. It's going to be perfectly fine for our use cases, but if, for example, you have, let's say, 500 upgrades, and you pass in an exclude array of 200, you are going to perhaps see some noticeable issues, because you'd be iterating over this loop 500 times, but then you'd be iterating over this 200 times. So you're doing a loop of 200 within a loop of 500. And you can see how that can stack up pretty well. Now, that's a very specific circumstance, and we're not going to be anywhere close to that, right? You could probably safely do a couple hundred upgrades, and as long as your exclude array doesn't grow any larger than like 3 or 4 or maybe even 10, it should be fine. So the point is, this is the quickest and easiest way to get this algorithm to pick items to work, and it will work with relatively
Yeah, this is a dictionary. I don't know why why I had it like that.
small arrays. But just be aware that this can present performance problems if your arrays are pretty large. But I think we'll be okay with what we've got here. And so now what we can do is we can go back to our upgrade manager, and we've got these chosen upgrades. We can just feed that back into this upgrade pool pick item, right? So we can say chosen upgrades. So we're keeping track of our chosen upgrades, and then we're feeding that back into pick item as our exclude array. So we're saying don't pick any upgrades that have already been chosen, right? And then we can get rid of this filtered upgrade here. And we just need to fix this check here. So let's just make this check effectively the same as what we have. So we don't have a filtered upgrades anymore. So why is this break here? This break is essentially here if there are no options to pick anymore, right? And how can we check that? Well, it's very simple. We can just take the upgrade pool dot items, because that's our array right here, right? Upgrade pool dot items dot size is equal to not 0, but our chosen upgrades dot size, right? So essentially what we're saying is if the exclude array is equal in size to the overall items array in the upgrade pool, then what that means is that all of the items in the pool are going to be excluded, and it's going to be a pool of 0, right? The table is going to contain 0 valid elements. So this is effectively the same check there. All right, so let's just do a quick check to make sure that our upgrades are still... work up the sort was a that means is that all of the items in the pool are going to be excluded, and it's going to be a pool of 0, right? The table is going to contain 0 valid elements. So this is effectively the same check there. All right, so let's just do a quick check to make sure that our upgrades are still working fine. All right, so we've got sword damage and sword quickness. I can pick up the sword quickness. Okay, so when I chose the axe, I got a crash, and that's because we're still treating the upgrade pool as if it was an array, but it's actually still a weighted table. So I'm going to stop the game. This should be fairly easy to deal with. Basically, what we're saying is once the current quantity is equal to the max quantity, we want to remove the item from the upgrade pool. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my weighted table, and I'm going to create a function called remove item. Underscore item, and we are going to pass in the item, okay? And then what we're essentially going to do is we're going to say items, so our items array is equal to items.filter. We're going to pass in the filter function, and we're going to say func item colon item, and then the key item. I know this is confusing, but so this key right here is equal to, let's rename this parameter item to remove, just so it's more clear. So we're going to remove item to remove. We're going to set the items array equal to a filtered version of the items array where the item is not equal to the item to remove. And we need to return this. So return the object that exists at the key item within the current item that we're looking at, and then it's not equal to the item to remove. So essentially we're saying, give us all of the items in the items array that are not equal to the item to remove, right? And we need to recalculate our weight sum. So let's say weight sum is equal to 0, and then we'll write a quick for loop for item in items. We're going to say weight sum plus equals item weight sum. Or sorry, this is just weight here. So item and then the key weight, because that's what's in our dictionary. So remove the item for the list, or rather the appropriate way of saying this is get all of the items in the items array that are not equal to the item to remove, and then set the weight sum to 0, iterate over all of those new filtered items, adding up the weights into the weight sum. So now when we go back to our upgrade manager, you can see that now instead of doing the filter here in our upgrade pool, so in this apply upgrade method, we were filtering it. Instead, we can do upgrade pool dot remove item, and we're going to remove the item that is this upgrade here. Okay, and so that should properly remove the axe from our pool. Let's go to our basic enemy scene. Let's turn up the vial drop to... We're going to remove the item that is this upgrade here. Okay, and so that should properly remove the axe from our pool. Let's go to our basic enemy scene. Let's turn up the vial drop to 1. So the vial drop percent up to 1 so that we can test it properly. Okay, I'm going to pick the axe. No errors this time, and I shouldn't be able to pick the axe in the future. Okay, all looks good. There's one more thing to do, and that is to make the damage.
Shoot red missiles. Yeah, I haven't gotten the physics totally worked out yet. Usually what they do is they make it so that area is just totally, you can't go in there. I'm thinking I might make it so that they don't actually collide with me. They just damage me. The game is already relatively difficult, though, you can see that. There is a bug, too. It's kind of frustrating. So right now, basically what I'm building out is the upgrade selection, right? And it's supposed to be the case where there's a long story short, you're not supposed to get certain abilities upgrades until you get the ability first. And right now you can get the ability before you get the upgrade. And that's not how it's supposed to be. I can show you right here. What I tried to do is, see, these are the 3 that you can get. Dependency resolution. So this is supposed to... I think I see what I did wrong. I think this is supposed to be not equal. So basically I was checking to see if I already had it. But the way I was checking was I was checking to see if I do have it. Oh no, it's still the same fucking issue. God damn it. Oh! No, you know what the issue is? Man, I'm so dumb. Okay. I actually just didn't change the oh no, I was wrong.
This is where we want to listen for upgrades, and we're going. Going to get all upgrade over all of those new filtered items.
I see why.
adding up the weights into the weight sum. So now when we go back to our upgrade manager, you
This game is fun, dude. Like, it's actually a pretty fun game. I fixed it. I saw what I did. So I tried to change something. Just for now, don't add the axe. No, I figured it out. So, I thought I was correcting a syntax error here, but I wasn't. Actually, this is so basically what you do here is you create an array from the information in the dictionary, and then you call that item. But I changed it because I thought I was calling the dictionary, not the array. And this isn't something the tutorial said to do. And so what I was doing is I was grabbing the original dictionary here, not the array that is created for the dictionary to exclude the specific items you're not supposed to have. So I fixed it. So you see how the missiles get red? That's when it gets way harder. Their collisions aren't even like correct yet. I gotta fix them because they have too big of a collision, so they like push things. That's why they pushed me out of the arena. And then they do that too. They bounce off each other. There's too much physics. Right now, the victory condition is just to last for 5 minutes, which is actually pretty tough. It's a fun game, dude. You can play the older version if you want. I didn't update it for a bit. You just say exclamation SP. There's an HTML game. If you're on Mac, it doesn't work though. Oh shit. Oh shit. So you can actually get 2 axes. I'm dead, dude. Freaking dead. Yeah, it is actually a pretty fun game. Eventually it'll go full Contra and I'll do like levels and stuff, but the first thing I want to do is just a survival mode. It's just a small arena and you just get more and more enemies and it'll be like infinitely scalable, right? If you can survive. So like, even though now the win condition is just to get 5 minutes, eventually it'll be like there's no it'll be both a time and kills combination. It'll be simple too. It'll be like the regular missiles are like 1 point and the hard ones are 2 or 5 or something. I don't know, I'll figure it out. And that's just gonna be it. And then this is how many missiles you kill, and people can compete over getting the highest score. And my plan for this game is just to make it so like every month I release like a new seasonal, I release like a new version of the survival mode, and then people can compete for and if it takes off, I'll implement like story mode, ship customizations, like you can buy like a different ship or missile for like $1 or something like that. I don't know, stuff like that. There was a tiny game that's just dodging bullets for 60 seconds. Yeah, this game actually, I don't know if you ever play like, it was either Halo 1 or Halo 2. There was a game that came with it that was very similar to this. Hey, Biz Master Studios. Let me do a shout out for Biz. Biz, I implemented both the rockets in. Have you seen this? You've been watching Biz? Bizmaster Studios did pretty much all of this art. I don't think... Oh, I made the explosions, I guess. See, Biz, I implemented explosions. Just got home from work. I implemented afterburner effects that happen when you push the button. Pretty cool. New font. The you can choose like upgrades now. Oh, that's not right. Is it though?
Baby, please, be good to me. Baby, please, be good to me. 'Cause I need you, darling. I'm begging, baby, please. It's so cold in the night, woman, on my own in the bed. Lonely in the daytime, please don't make me beg. I'm like a fish out of water, a jumper way out on the ledge.
Oh, I see what I did wrong.
Yes, I know I was wrong. I did some hurting too. But believe me, baby, I'm never ever gonna make a fool out of you.
It could be a fluke, but you were confident. Sword damage. Everything's like mislabeled. This is supposed to be sword damage.
Baby, please, be good to me. 'Cause I need you, darling. I'm begging, baby, please. I said I need you, darling. I'm begging, baby, please.
Everything's like totally the wrong thing. Okay, so axe periodically sends out axe damage. Okay, so this one has a max of 5. This one has a max of 0, so no max. Sword damage, no max. Sword rate is 5. Sword rate or axe. This is right. I'm gonna pick the sword rate to see if I get the 2 axes together. I don't think I will. It looks like it's totally working. Pick it the sword rate again. See if I get the axe options. Dude, this game is too hard already. I'm not long to live in this world. HP scaling seems to be too fast. So as far as the balancing, I'm not super concerned about it, but I mean, I gotta implement all this stuff first before I balance it. But the HP scaling is not really scaling. It's just there's 2 types of enemies. There's the red missiles and the non-red missiles. I'm freaking gonna get destroyed right here. I'm dead. Oh, I lived. For a little bit longer. Also, it just spawns like crazy fast, and part of the reason I did that is just to get an idea. Rip. Is just to get an idea of how it performs. You know, I wanted to see if there's any slowdown when you have like thousands of missiles. So far, I haven't had any detectable slowdown, which is a good sign. I don't think, at least initially, I'll make it so this many missiles spawn right off the bat. I don't think that that'll be fun. I think if you crescendo up to it a bit more, it'll give... But right now, it's spawning about 100 times as much as I intend for it to. Or at least I intended for it. Now that I make it spawn so much, it's kind of fun. But it does kind of glitch out a bit. So, I don't know. The missiles like knock each other off the screen. They get like stuck. It gets like... One missile gets sandwiched between 2 and it'll like pop it out like a pickle and like fling it at me at like Mach speed.
You can see that now instead of doing the filter. filter here in our upgrade pool. So in this apply upgrade method, we were filtering it. Instead, we can do upgrade pool dot test it properly. Okay, I'm going to pick the axe. No errors this time, and I shouldn't be able to pick the axe in the future. Okay, all looks good. There's one more thing to do, and that is to make the damage work. So let's open up our sword ability controller, and we'll open up that script. And you can see that our on ability upgrade added. This is where we want to listen for upgrades, and we're going to get all upgrades sent here. Now we have this. Built with the assumption that the sword rate is the only one that can happen, or that can affect the sword, but we actually have a new one, sword damage, right? And so what we can do is, before I go any further, I'm going to rename this to base damage, just like so. And then I'm going to say, create a new variable, var additional damage %. We'll set that to 1. And why are we setting that to 1? Because when we multiply base damage by additional damage %, that will return 5. Okay, and then we can just increment this number to increase the multiplier. So, back down to the bottom of the script, we need to replace this with base underscore damage. So sword instance dot hitbox component dot damage is equal to base damage times the additional damage %. So you see how that works? And then in our on ability upgrade added function, I'm going to remove this return, and then I'm going to indent all 3 of these lines underneath that, okay? And then I'm going to change this check, this operator, to equals. So if upgrade I... You see how that works? And then in our on ability upgrade added function, I'm going to remove this return, and then I'm going to indent all 3 of these lines underneath that, okay? And then I'm going to change this check, this operator, to equals. So if upgrade ID is equal to sword rate, do all of these things. Then we can do an else if. So an else if in Godot is done with elif, E-L-I-F, and this is basically saying only move to this block if this block failed. So if this evaluation is false, then move on to this evaluation. So I can say elif upgrade.id is equal to sword underscore damage, which is what our ID is right here, right? And then what do we want to do in here? Additional damage % plus equals, and what did we say it was? 15%. So we do plus 0.15. Okay, so that is our sword damage increase. Let's do the same change for the axe. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to copy this on ability upgrade added function right here. And I think that should be fine. So I'm going to open up the the axe ability controller now. And okay. So that is our sword damage increase. Let's do the same change for the axe. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to copy this on ability upgrade added function right here. And I think that should be fine. So I'm going to open up the the axe ability controller now. And we need to go ahead and paste that in. So this on ability upgrade added. I'm going to go back to my sword ability controller script, copy this game events line from the ready method. Just because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to retype it, and paste that in the ready method of the axe ability controller. Okay, we can get rid of this second elif block here, and we can basically get rid of this. Now, I'm going to write pass in here because I'm realizing that we implemented this sword ability controller damage slightly wrong. Instead of just simply adding 15% in the on ability upgrade added, we want to read the current upgrade quantity, right? So we want to say additional damage percent is equal to 1 plus, and then let's remove the 0.15 in parentheses, current upgrades sword underscore damage quantity, and then multiply that by 0.15. And the reason why we want to use this instead of doing a straight addition like we were doing is because you could imagine a situation in which we change the quantity more than 1, right? So we say, oh, add 2 instead of 1. Well, this would be incorrect then if it was only adding 15% instead of 30%, right? So we're going to read the current upgrades and then make sure to change this. Key to sword damage, right? This needs to be the same, or this needs to be referencing the sword damage, and then the quantity times 0.15. All right, so now let's go back to the...
4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, I really like this song. Thumbs up. Song's a banger.
the axe ability, and we... we have axe damage is what it's called. So let's change this upgrade ID line to axe underscore damage. And we're going to do the same thing. So we'll say up on line 5 here, we're going to change that variable damage to base damage. And then we're going to create another variable, additional damage percent equals 1. Okay. Then we'll change the line 26 down here in on timer timeout. Base damage times additional damage percent. Okay, and then in here, we're gonna say, instead of writing pass, we'll do addition.
I think I missed something.
5. All right, so now let's go back to the axe ability, and we have axe damage is what it's called. So let's change this upgrade ID line to axe underscore damage. And we're gonna do the same thing. So we'll say up on line 5 here, we're gonna change that variable damage to base damage. And then we're gonna create another variable, additional damage percent equals 1, okay? Then we'll change the line 26 down here in on timer timeout. Base damage times additional damage percent, okay? And then in here, we're gonna say, instead of writing pass, we'll do additional damage percent is equal to 1 plus, in parentheses, current upgrades keyed with axe underscore damage, and then quantity. And then we'll multiply this by, I believe it was 10%, right?
This isn't like the most robust way to do it. Maybe he'll fix it later. I kind of want to just give him the benefit of the doubt.
So let's open up our axe damage. Yeah, 10%. So we'll multiply by 0.1 here. Okay, let's see if these upgrades work. And the beautiful thing about this is we have floating numbers, and so we should be able to see those floating numbers affecting the damage. All right, let's do the axe damage, and we should see a number greater than 10 happening. There we go, 11. Plus, in parentheses, current upgrades.
Oh yeah, another parenthesis here.
Keyed with axe underscore damage, and then
I think this is wrong. So I've been... Oh shit, it's still fucked. Invalid operands, integer, and nil. Dang, this all looks right. Hitbox component dot damage equals base damage times additional damage percent.
Instead of just simply adding 15% in the on ability upgrade added, we want to read the current upgrade quantity, right? So we want to say additional damage percent is equal to 1 plus, and then let's remove the 0.15 in parentheses, current upgrades sword underscore damage quantity, and then multiply that by 0.15. And the reason why we want to use this instead of doing a straight addition like we were doing is because
Sword instance hitbox component damage equals base damage times additional damage percent. Additional damage percent. Should save it. Let's see where the issue is. What did I do? Gosh, I gotta go to sleep, dude. I have to wake up at like freaking 4 o'clock tomorrow. I think I got a lot of sleep today, but I'm like really confused about this. Don't understand what broke. I know that one doesn't do anything.
because you could imagine a situation.
Additional damage percent. Maybe I have to make this so it's not nil. That actually makes sense. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, cool. Easy fix. Because I thought maybe you'd want to wait for it to get assigned, but that actually makes sense because this way you have one before you get an upgrade. Otherwise it'll return null when you get the upgrade. So then the sword damage will increase. Oh, it has decimals. What? When I didn't realize I used floats. 5.75. That's 15%, not 10%. Wait. Yeah, 0.7. I guess I can just change the... Increase the damage by 15%. Okay, well that's all good. Everything works.
Situation in which we change the quantity more than one, right? So we say, oh, add 2 instead of 1. Well, this would be incorrect then if it was only adding 15% instead of 30%, right? So we're going to read the current upgrades and then make sure to change this key to sword damage, right? This needs to be the same, or this needs to be referencing the sword damage, and then the quantity times 0.15. All right, so now let's go back to the axe ability, and additional damage percent equals current upgrades keyed with axe underscore damage, and then quantity. And then we'll multiply this by, I believe it was 10%, right? So let's open up our axe damage. Yeah, 10%. So we'll multiply by
5 minutes left
here.
on this lesson. Then I can
Okay,
go to sleep.
let's see if these upgrades work. And the beautiful thing about this is we have floating numbers, and so we should be able to see those floating numbers affecting the damage. All right, let's do the axe damage, and we should see now if I select the sword damage, what you'll notice is that we're going to start seeing decimal numbers, and we don't necessarily want that to be shown, at least not to that degree. So we need to format that text when we're spawning the text damage numbers. And this will be the final thing that we need to do for this lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the hurtbox component, which is responsible for formatting the string. And we need to format this properly according to the actual value of the number. And so this is a little bit tricky. And there are formatting string documents that I'm going to link for this lesson. So you can take a look at the lesson resources.
But we're just
to
going to
read
round
the
it.
documentation about string formatting.
Right.
But basically the way that we can format decimal places is we can do this. So I'm going to say var format underscore string is equal to, in quotes, %0.1f. Okay, so this may be a little bit confusing, but essentially what this is saying is add no padding, so just make the string as long as it needs to be, and format to 1 decimal place. That's what this is saying essentially. And F means that it's expecting a float. And the way that we use this is we can do, instead of doing this string, we'll remove that. We'll do format underscore string, and then percent hitbox component dot damage. So now if we run that, what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing 0.0 now. So it's 1 decimal place. But we don't want that to happen. String, we'll remove that. We'll do format underscore string, and then percent hitbox component dot damage. So now if we run that, what's going to happen is
to smile. And I think about when I will hold her again. Are you missing me tonight? Everything be alright.
Box component dot damage. So now if we run that, what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing 0.0 now. So it's 1 decimal place. But we don't want that to happen for
Just wanna go home tonight. Just wanna go home tonight. Just wanna go home tonight. Just wanna go home tonight.
Oh, it makes it a decimal. You see that? 1.0.
So now if we run the whole place, but we don't want that to happen for whole integers, right? We only want that to happen if there's actually a decimal number, right? Like 5.8, like that's showing up right there. So the way that we're going to do this is why we stored that format string in a variable. So in our hurtbox component script, let's write an if statement, if round, and then we're going to take that hitbox component dot damage.
When 1,000 kisses on
If that number rounded is equal to hitbox component dot damage, then we're going to say our format string is equal to, we're going to make it the same string, except we are going to do 0.0. So what we're essentially saying is that if the rounded value of the number is equal to the number itself, that must mean that it's a whole integer, right? And so we're just going to set the format string to 0.0f, and what this essentially does too is this tells us to round the number as well. With 0 decimal places, that's what rounding does. And by the way, with 1 decimal place, it rounds to that decimal place, right? So that's basically it. So we're reassigning the format string to have 0 decimal places, and now when you run the game, it will only show the decimals for numbers that actually have decimal digits. That was a long lesson, but got a lot done. Our weighted table is now much more powerful than it was, and we have plenty of room to add even more content. I will say that if you don't like the look of the decimals, you can just set your format string to this 0.0f value if you just want to round all the numbers and you don't care about being accurate. So another option is you can beef up all of the damage numbers and the health of all the entities to the point where you don't need to be super specific. I would encourage you to play with any of the numbers, play with the drop rates, the health, the damage. Those aren't super important to match me exactly, so make it feel how you want to feel, but this is how you can format strings to display numbers properly. All right, and that's it. We've got 2 new upgrades done.
That's not how I would have done it. I would have used the max function,
The next step,
or the roof, I think is what it's called. There's a function where you can just have it always round up. But this format string is good because it's like a little bit more. I mean, ultimately it would be the same, but
I miss getting to sing along. I miss hearing your voice soar above mine. I don't want to give up on this. I'm writing words to a melody, hoping that your heart remembers the way we used to be. Oh, if you come back to me. I miss your love, what it brings out in me. I miss your love, it's so dark that I can't see. I wanna try, 'cause I have so much left to show. Let it shine, wanna give it love to grow. Well, I miss laughing uncontrollably with you, and I miss your face as the first thing I wake up to. I miss you saying you like my fingers through your hair. But most of all,
Okay, well, I think that's it for me for tonight.
Up in our
miss you singing every song. I miss getting to sing along. I miss hearing
I won't probably be back on until Friday. Upgrade card. So it looks like it's going to be UI stuff. Pretty much. Yeah. UI and then sound effects. Menus. Pretty much everything. That's all we're going to do. I'm going to add another ability.
All right, welcome to the post-core.
I'm also going to do one more enemy, a third enemy type, and one more ability. So as soon as I finish everything on the tutorial, I'm just going to add a couple more features. So basically it's just UI, menus, an additional enemy, an additional weapon, additional ability, and then I'm going to start adding some of the things I want to add. Let me actually write this down. So I'm going to make it so that your shields are actually like a weapon so that they hurt the enemy. So you don't, but they will also hurt your health, right? So if you when the missiles run into you, they will blow up. And then you'll be able to upgrade shield damage too. So I need to add the shield damage to missiles, make shields show when damaging, make guns shoot. Alright, I did that. So I also want to make the gun upgradable. And then I'm writing down right now. In two ways. I want to increase bullets frequency. So you shoot more bullets per second. Then I also want to increase bullet damage. I want to clean up the animation for the axe. Biz, are you still there? Clean up the axe animation. Set up account login. Plus set up leaderboard. I need a scoring system. Okay, let's raid somebody. So really, it's just my bullet system, my shield system, account, HTTP calls. Oh, I look terrible. Everybody's on right now. No devs are on though. We'll raid Mercenary Mage. Alright, everybody. It's been a blast. I'm gonna go to sleep now. Check y'all later. Good night.
Thank you for the raid, Maui Game Studios. How's it going? Maui raid, yeah. Hey, Code Red, how's it going? Going good. Glad to hear it. Game's looking good. Well, thank you. But how's your stuff going? You've been using Godot recently. Uh-oh. We're gonna have to turn you into the police. They'll know what to do with you. Making a Vampire Survivor style game. I gotcha. I gotcha. I have a... you joined the Godot cult? Yeah. I have a very tenuous relationship with Vampire Survivor. Where I play it, and, you know,